All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience in making it to the 12th annual SeaGL. I have a lot of thank yous to share before we get started with our closing keynotes. But as always, thank you for being here. SeaGL would not be what it is without anyone coming to the show. Start off, this costs a lot of money to run. It's a big venue, big hall, we have snacks all day. We do all of this for free, and we're committed to big and little F freedom at this conference. So I want to start off by thanking our fiscal sponsors. We have 2 gold sponsors this year. First up is Schedules Direct. They are the only sponsor who's been with SeaGL since year 1, continuously. So thank you, Schedules Direct. I also want to thank Google. Google came in this year not only as a gold sponsor, but helping our IDEA initiative to make more inclusiveness, diversity, equity, and access for everyone. So thank you very much, Google. I'd also like to thank our bronze and regional sponsors, Linux, JMP, and MySQL. Thank you so much for helping support this event. A big thanks for getting the word out to our media sponsors, Ada's Technical Books and Cafe, Dev IT Jobs, Linux Magazine, and Tech Hub Media. And of course, thank you to our many supporting communities. SeaGL is, has been, and always will be a community event. We wouldn't be anywhere without this community, so thank you. All of these sponsors, as well as those who supported in the past, can be found on our website at seagull.org/sponsors. Please take a look. Please support these. Please tell other companies that this is a great event that they should be sponsoring so that we can continue to put on this show. And I hope that over the last couple days, you had a chance to meet many of those exhibitors in the hallway, talk to them, and tell them that you really appreciate them being there so they can come back next year. All right. So moving on, how do we do this aside from the costs here? Well, SeaGL is all volunteer run. We put in countless hours both at the event and before. Since the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of organizations have seen a dip in their volunteers, and SeaGL isn't any different than that. But there are many folks who have been part of this year's effort, and I really want to thank each and every one of them. But I'm going to highlight the ones who took that little extra step up and decided to support one of our committees by being a committee coordinator. So the subcommittee coordinators that we had this year, we have AJ on DevOps and AV. We have Norm, who was not able to make it, but was heading the finance committee. So thank you, Norm. We have Dina with IDEA initiatives. That is inclusiveness, diversity, equity, and access. I'm not sure if I see her in the room, but oh, there you are. Thank you, Dina. Robin with the partnerships. Thank you, Robin. Dawn put together a great program. Thank you, Dawn. Sure, I saw Alfredo, who was helping with promotion outreach. Thank you, Alfredo. And Angel brought it all together with the volunteers. Is Angel here? Maybe outside? Thank you, Angel, so much for all your help. So we couldn't have put this on without them and without the other volunteers. And I really want to say thank you for so many of you stepping up during this weekend and being willing to help out where you are able. But for us to come back next year, we need volunteers before just this weekend. So if you can, please try to get involved before next year. SeaGL.org/get involved. We have a matrix, we have email, you can come and talk to us in person. We have some of the committees where people aren't going to be able to return next year, And so we are definitely looking for people to train now, figure out what went wrong or what we can improve, and then pass it on so we can keep SeaGL going for another 12 years. So please do reach out if you're interested and able to get involved. We really appreciate it. All right, so I have a couple more details that I'm going to say at the end of the presentations, but I want to get us started. So without further ado, I'd like to present Rachel Kelly. Now, Rachel has been a volunteer of SeaGL in the past, and we're just so happy to have her return to the keynote stage. So thank you, Rachel. Take it away.
Hello, and thank you for having me. My name is Rachel Kelly. I have been a longtime fan and a few years volunteer of SeaGL, and it is a tremendous honor to be here. As Salt said yesterday, SeaGL makes the effort to support first-time keynoters, which I am, and I am so grateful. Thank you for coming back from SeaGL and the break to spend a little bit more time with me and with us before we part for the year. I have volunteered with SeaGL and also with PyLeads and a conference called PyDX, Python in Portland, and a digital access nonprofit in Portland called FreeGeek, as well as in the IT department of a low to no cost healthcare clinic in Portland called Outside In. My day job is at Fastly as a site reliability engineer. The only commonality from the day job who I'd like to talk with you about today is that data security is paramount, whether personal or commercial. And you know the importance of your data footprint and your personal security, but it's harder to explain the decisions that you make when they might seem overly technical or paranoid, as I have been called, or time-consuming. So I'd like to share some ways to talk about password managers, social media, cookies, and the value of what we put out onto the internet. There's just one very brief mention of miscarriage of content warning in a few slides. But please note, I will be talking about more than just free and open source tools, because a company that is charging for quality services in non-predatory ways are, in my opinion, perfectly moral choices to make, and usually a lower lift than asking someone to use tools with more configuration required. In security, as so many of you know, there is no such thing as safe. There is just safer. And every choice that moves the needle closer to more secure is safer. That may mean a for-profit company, ideally incentivized to provide product value in exchange for money. If you prefer to use only open source software, I understand. I also prefer FOSS. But I do use closed source tools where it's clear that the payment is money and not my browsing habits or some such. And I want these things to be as approachable and accessible as possible for those who are not as, again, paranoid as I am. One of my favorite expressions is, I'm just some guy, meaning I really am not an expert. I just have some personal experience. Guys is totally not a gender neutral term. I won't try to argue that in the least. And yet I identify deeply as just some guy, though I would never put that on anyone else. I have done an amount of research to try to bring easy solutions to known problems. And I'll also be speaking from my own experience during this talk. Corrections are happily accepted if you email me at anything@rkode.com. And I'll update the accompanying blog post with resources from the talk if I absorb the correction. So, You are here because you want to know how to respond to and help your family and friends when they express frustrations or disinterest at the idea of better personal data management and ownership. First of all, realize that you are so much more than the data that they gather on you. As you'll soon come to learn, I protect myself in a lot of ways, and I know that they still have plenty of my data. And yet, there is no point at which they will have all of it. You are more than your actuarial likelihoods. They gather your data so they can sell you more stuff. And sometimes that can be helpful, but even if it is necessarily totally opaque. Our funny example is, I just bought a suitcase on Amazon. Do you need a second one? No, but it's going to keep telling you about suitcases for a while. And then, of course, the much sadder example, and this is a long genre. You are expecting, or someone around you is, and then something happens, but your entire Facebook feed is still baby advertisements. That's horrible. It is an unethical and non-consensual collection of your personal information and habits. Non-consensual, even if you've agreed to the terms of service. 91% of adults, one study found, do not read terms of service. I don't. They get longer and longer all the time. One study says that terms of service are incomprehensible to most adults, like forget reading level. And another says that the company does great when we ignore the terms of service, that they make more money when we do not absorb the terms of service. It's so bald. So let's help people. As my friend Brian Wisty once said, a longtime SeaGL goer as well, in reference to trying to be a helper in a situation that you're unfamiliar with, what is the smallest thing I can do that will make a difference? So the people that we want to talk to and that we want to help, they're just living their lives. They haven't signed up for all the nerdy security stuff that you have, or that I have in particular, for a million good reasons. It's also possible that they have and they've been rebuffed. It is our job as technically capable people in this room and watching this on the live stream to help with solutions that don't require joining our cult or wrestling with a cloud provider. So I'd like to talk first about personal data management in passwords. This is such a massive topic, and I care a lot about it, so I've put a lot in here, but of course there's like endless amounts more, and that can be said for most of these topics, as I'm sure you'll find. The good password hygiene really does keep all of us safer. And I just want to say that, even down to a paper notebook at your laptop, if you keep up with it, any system at all is better than password reuse. So that is what we are working against. We're not necessarily trying to move from one pretty good solution to the superior solution. You will notice in this talk that we're not talking about the very best solution. We're talking about the ways to make our community safer in accessible ways. So I'd like you to please regard my completely objective rating system that I came up with. And yeah, like I said, there are nerdier and sometimes better ways to do a lot of these things, but really we just want Uncle Clive to start using these good practices and to not have to comb through Stack Overflow to make sure his key pass isn't getting cracked. While the workflow of email reset every time is very labor intensive, it's pretty safe actually if you avoid password reuse. If you do reuse passwords or have a rotation of a few passwords, then you introduce a ton of risk. And if a reset flow fails, then you could be locked out of that account. It's not recommended, however, it is still better than total password reuse. And if you're using no password management system at all, not even the last one, you can just go ahead and let your browser or phone manage them for you. It's much better than nothing. And the onboarding for this method is probably the easiest of almost any of them, which is maybe one of the most important attributes of a good system to introduce to somebody else. There are limitations, like someone getting onto that browser or phone, and there isn't a non-manual way to use those passwords in different settings than your device or the browser, but it really still is a better option than not having anything. An independent password application like 1Password or Bitwarden or NordPass or something is the clear winner, but don't underestimate the onboarding and workflow differences from what a person is probably used to. There are browser plugins and phone apps to ease some of this, but those two can still be yet another system when all that Aunt Joni wants to do is log into her bank account. So we support with empathy. I've personally been a happy customer of 1Password for many years, and I recommend them without reservation. A personal plan is $3 a month. I do think that we should talk about money with things like this more. A personal plan is $3 a month. Most anybody can swing that, but if they can't, many people in this room have okay salaries, and that isn't everybody. However, a family plan is $5 a month and includes 5 people and does not by default like share amongst them. So maybe that's something that you could help with. If you are already using 1Password at $3 a month, maybe another couple a month could really help somebody. Fun fact, I did email them and say, I love your product, I'm gonna be talking about it. Can I give out discounts or anything? And they said, it's not enough notice. And I'm like, that's fine. And then one big caveat about password management. Don't use LastPass. Don't use LastPass. Do not use LastPass. And please work to discourage anyone you know from using it. And please consider offering your time and your brain to help migrate to 1Password or a similar platform. They have been popped over and over and over again. And while I was doing research for this, it was like, oh, it's different now. It's owned by someone else. No, it's owned by the same VC firm that has owned it for like 15 years. Like it's not different. Do not believe them. They have been popped too many times. We just need to move on. These aren't quotes. I mean, I guess they're quotes by me, so. So now let's talk about your and your loved ones' personal data flow to massive companies. I have given multiple talks on steps to take to use less Google right here at SeaGL. And I won't rehash those talks, but I will just sort of summarize. I mean, there are so many summary points I could make, but the one that I will bring today is that when you limit the flow of your data to major players like Google, that also has the effect of reducing others' data that is flowing to them. Data is useless without context. And knowing that you talk to someone in particular about something not only gives them data on you, your messaging habits, your shopping preferences, but also on your relationships, and then that person's preferences as well. And all of that is highly valuable marketing information for them. Google is pervasive. This is hard. There is so much lock-in with Google. And I would bet pretty good money that even more is coming with their products. But there are easy and fruitful ways to limit some of that data flow. I personally don't love Chromium browsers, even though the project is open source, because in my opinion, again, my day job is working on a certificate authority. Google and Chrome, and thus even Chromium, just have so much dominance in the browser and certificate authority space. And I just really think that we should try to be minimizing that. DuckDuckGo is commonly offered up as an easy alternative for search, and that's fine. They are ad-based, and their results are based on Microsoft Bing, which I think is funny, but with way less targeting than Google search. Their results aren't always like terrific, but they're very open about their tech and about how they make their money. So I still think that they are an easy and terrific drop-in for anybody that might want to switch from Google search. I personally have started to use a search engine called Kagi, which is very good. It is a paid search service, which I think is a little bit unthinkable for most users, maybe more outside this room than within. But they do fairly proudly use some AI in their search results, and you may object to that, which I understand. And then, going back to 2005, Flickr is $5 a month if you pay every 2 years, and the storage is unlimited. It's a weird platform from a different age of the internet, but I kind of like that it doesn't have that like extremely clean, you can't tell where the buttons are look of modern websites or whatever. And it works great with an auto upload from your phone if you pay for it. Like it works terrific. And it's funny, I almost hesitate to put Fastmail in the advanced column because it is just such a pleasure to use. It truly is fast. Filtering works great. And every time I have to go back to Gmail filtering crap, I'm like, why doesn't this work? Why is it that when I put in this filter and I say, please do this with it, Jira tickets still just flood my Gmail inbox no matter what I do? Like, why is that? Fastmail has no such problems. The email experience is a million times what Gmail is. It's a little bit of setup, and it does cost money. It's $5 a month. And the calendar experience is totally compatible with whatever you need it to be. It isn't as good as GCal. However, it's pretty good. And a calendar application is like so complex. So we have empathy for that in this room. A newer user may feel differently, but it really is pretty good and quite usable. And then Zoho Suite is now what I use for cloud docs and slideshows, like this one. They are a paid product, but for minimal usage, for personal usage, I couldn't even find a way to pay as a personal user, but their like data policies that I was able to find seemed pretty good. I totally welcome correction on this. I just want a different cloud slideshow and docs solution than G Suite's, obviously. And I recommend it. It's been very easy to use. And then there's Facebook and Instagram. Reducing your data flow to them is synchronous with reducing the network effect that the platform has, that the platforms have. Both of these are good things. They are never, ever, ever not working to keep your eyeballs on their products for their advertisers. In Federal Trade Commission versus Meta Platforms, documents in discovery revealed that they deliberately keep switching costs high. Well, if I leave the platform, I'm not going to be able to talk to any of my friends. Well, they make sure that it's legally recorded that is the method that they're using. It's disgusting. I read about this case, and then I did a little bit more for this in former SeaGL keynote Cory Doctorow's book, The Internet Con, which I highly recommend as a non-technical overview of the impact of current tech monopoly. And, like that said, like many people still make their entire living on Facebook. and or feel that they are not able to leave for many good reasons. Again, their platform is designed to make it difficult to painful to leave. So we are not here to shame anyone. This is about making things a little bit better. What is the smallest thing that we can do to make a difference? So let's talk about safer ways to use Facebook and Instagram. First, use it less. That's hard, I understand. We'll get to more concrete stuff. Try not to use the app on your phone. If you're going to use it on your phone, try to use it in the browser. And to wit, don't stay logged in, which is very easy to do in the browser to log out. And if we were there in the password part of this, that's a snap because you have the password saved and it's no big deal. Clear cookies time. This may sort of be getting into a more technical setting, but as an alternative to either of those, you can also use Firefox containers. Now, this isn't, Docker containers like many people in the room might know. This is Firefox's separate thing that just sort of contains the blast radius of Facebook's little crawlies. So, and for a fun time, look up lawsuits involving Meta platforms. It's a massive Wikipedia article. And ad blocking is fairly well known even outside the tech set, but there is sort of a pendulum of accessibility to ad blocking software where it's easier to block all ads, and then JavaScript happened, and then we figured out how to block that, and then the structure of the modern site has continually corporately changed to be much more dynamic than when we figured out how to block scripts, so it doesn't block them, so it doesn't really apply anymore. And then we figured out how to block at the network levels, and so on and so forth. So will it go for probably many more years yet? Personally, blocking ads is critical for my attention span, particularly at my work, because I have attention deficit disorder. So I pay for AdGuard, which is one option for holistic ad blocking. It's an operating system level application that you can purchase. And I do, on a side note, feel that it is totally immoral to advertise to me while I'm working. I am a captive audience. I have to be here to keep on eating food and sleeping in a dry place. No, you can't advertise to me right now. But folks in your life may feel less dramatically than I do about ads. Or not bothered by any but the most egregious. I would encourage you to talk with them about how cookies and ads are always collecting user data, and blocking the ads blocks much of that collection. Ad blocking, oh gosh, it's a massive topic with a history as long as humanity itself. People were insulted at the first billboards. Taking over of a public space to advertise is actually nauseating if we think about it too hard anyway. So this just goes back and back. So just a small slice here. So let's talk about some alternatives for community, to corporate managed, profit motivated community platforms. Of course, many people have moved to and discovered Mastodon in recent years. IRC, particularly SeaGL, is pretty active, and many of you have secretly been using IRC all weekend. And then there's blogs and newsletters, and I love that newsletters have such a renaissance right now. There's discussions to be had about the ownership of the content of the newsletters, but I think that we're really actually making pretty good progress. And then also calling your friends. You can call them. They can call you, but you can call them. I just want to remind people of that sometimes. So let's talk about some alternatives. So even if you have found your internet home, these wonderful projects and ideas are worth your notice. And I would encourage you to embrace the friction that these places present. On NeoCities, it's practically a meme that yeah, no, it's bad, it's janky, but it's mine. It's mine, I made it, and I can change it whenever I want. Even describing most of these could be a talk of their own. I think it'd be a terrific lightning talk if anyone wanted to do that. So please know that I've included them in the accompanying blog post. And I know some of the folks involved in these, and I know nothing of some of the others. They just seem like special and new and worth preserving. But briefly, I would like to talk about a site called Co-host. Co-host was a place that turned numbers incentives off in practically every conceivable way. And it was my online home for the last several years, and it is now gone. Rather, it's read-only through the end of the year, and then all of its data will be deleted. And I just really hope that we can figure out something that takes its lessons of community and play forward. It's the finest and warmest social media that I have ever used, and I've always made a home on the internet. And as you may see, I'm sort of trying to reevaluate that at the moment. The call to action here is help your loved ones use a password manager, but still recognize that any system that does not reuse passwords is probably better. If Facebook must be used, try to approach with harm reduction in mind. Use less, use the web page, not the app. Delete cookies, log out. Understand the value and the capability that you have. Continue to object to the endless, invisible scooping of our data. Use less Google. Block ads. And try weird websites. Or try to make a bad website. And then maybe you'll make a good one later. But make a bad website now. Thank you so much for having me. I have been your speaker, Rachel Kelly, and I would like you to know this, that relationship by relationship, we build community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We don't take questions during the keynotes. But next up, I would like to present Dwayne O'Brien. Dwayne has been a long time Free Libre Open community advocate. He's encouraged many people and supported many people. And we're just so happy that he accepted our invitation to SeaGL. So without further ado, please take it away, Dwayne.
Rachel, I appreciate your talk and thank you so much. And everybody, please close your eyes while I now plug in my MacBook and pull up Google Slides just for a moment.
We don't shame OSs here.
Good.
It's not loud
Could be. That was a slide. All right. I'm going to get my mouse back over here so I can see my notes. My friends, I'm Dwayne O'Brien, and I stand in front of you today not as the Director of Collaborative Engineering at Capital One or as the person who builds and leads and advises open source programs offices and have done for 10 years, or the creator of the FOSS Contributor Fund, or even as an open source collective board member. I stand in front of you as a very tired human. I am a tired human who has seen 13 states in 10 days as I've driven across the country to relocate from the San Francisco Bay Area to New York City at a very interesting time to be crossing the country. And I'm carrying that in with me into this conversation. Now, I've had a lot of time on that drive and a lot of wide open spaces with a lot of nothing to think about what I wanted to say and how I felt about the things that I love, the things that I care about, and the things that I hope that you care about as well. Now, I couched this talk with the premise that sustainability is about you and me and us. And I will get to that, I promise. But I want to dig into some stuff ahead of time, because that's where I've spent a lot of my time over the last few years. And I have a lot that I can say here. So for context, a couple of years ago, I received a grant from the Ford and Sloan Foundations to work in my personal time on some research around the flow of funding into the free and open source ecosystem, with particular eye toward foundations and events and so on. If you want details on some of that work, I gave a talk at Scale. I will post the slides, I just finished them, so that you can find the talk. I gave it earlier this year, and I prefaced that talk by saying I'm not a dataist or an artist or an ist really of any kind. I just looked at some information, did some research, and came up with some observations. Now, the way I went about this process was we would identify a sponsee, a foundation, or an organization. We would go into the Wayback Machine and we would look at both the prospectus for that organization and who was showing up on the sponsors page for that organization. And then we would supplement that data with other findings from publicly available 990s or on companies' end with some Crunchbase data and so on and so forth. As a side note, I maintain a repository of prospectuses for free and open source software organizations and events. If you're looking for any, they might be there. If you have any that I don't, I would love to accept pull requests to add to that repository. So let's walk through some examples. So let's take the Apache Software Foundation. When we looked over the sponsorship levels for 2023, they ranged from about $6,000 to as high as $125,000. And when we looked over the last 10 years, we estimated sponsors' revenue to be about $16.9 million. And if we looked at the 990s, which lagged by about 2 years, it came out to about $14.4 million, which was pretty close given what we were expecting. 2023, we guessed that it would look about like a couple $1 million based on the sponsors page. And that's the approach that we took in doing that analysis. If we look at the open source initiative, their sponsorship levels are just as broad, $500,000 to $100,000, but their budget is much more modest. In 2023, we estimated it would be about $366,000 with about $3 million over the course of the last 10 years. For the Python Software Foundation, again, a very broad range in sponsorship levels, but we see that the methodology falls down a bit, because when we look at the sponsors pages over 10 years and kind of apply this methodology, we don't come anywhere close to what the 990s reported revenue was, which means there's other sources of revenue coming into the Python Software Foundation that aren't accounted for. If we look at the Linux Foundation, it was tricky for several different reasons. The first is that base membership in the Linux Foundation ranges from $5,000 to up to $500,000. But when we actually look at the numbers in aggregate, it's very difficult to get to, because the sponsors page only shows membership in the base Linux Foundation, but the actual reported revenue includes all the sub-foundations underneath the Linux Foundation: the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, the OpenJS Foundation, Continuous Delivery Foundation, Open Source Security Foundation, and so on. Actually trying to get to 10 years worth of estimated revenue was difficult because there were so many logos on the page that the Internet Archive interpreted it as a DDoS attack every time I tried to go in and load those. So it inhibited my ability to go dig into that information. Now, as I looked at that information, I was able to come up with a lot of interesting sort of looks at where companies were spending money on foundations and events and so on and so forth. And then before I came in to do this, after dinner last night, I went and looked because a bunch of the 2022 990s had come in. So I added those, and I included the 990s for the Open Source Collective Foundation, and I came up with this chart. So this is total revenue as represented by 990s from 2014 to 2022, just representing those 7 organizations. Now, I don't want you to get depressed when you see this chart, because that was my immediate reaction too. Stay with me while we dig into this a little bit deeper. It's going to continue to get scary, but I think there are things that are very hopeful for us as well. If we take that same information and drop it into a pie chart, it still looks like a giant Pac-Man with the Linux Foundation eating the rest of the foundations. So this is 2014 to 2022. I've had a colleague describe it as the Linux Foundation licking all the cookies, which I think is kind of a hilarious way to go about it. But if we go back and just look at 2014, it doesn't look much different. And if we follow the flow of information, 2014 across all of those 990s, it was $35 million. The Linux Foundation was about $31 million. 2014 to 2015 to 2016 to 2017 to 2018, proportionally, it's staying about the same, right? All the way up even into 2020, 2021, 2022, 990 filings, $200 million that flow into these organizations. So when we look at this, it's a scary looking graph. When we take the LF out, we see big climbs for the other organizations as well. And in particular, that large green line is the Open Source Collective Foundation, which houses funds that are governed by projects themselves and by project maintainers. NumFocus also kind of a standout on that chart. What this tells me is that the whole pie is getting bigger. And that's something that we should feel good about. Now, I want you to follow me into the Wayback Machine for a little bit, because 20 years ago, we were having very different conversations. I found this on my phone. This is one of the first talks from the very first OSCON that I attended, 2004, 2005, I'm not sure when, on how to convince your manager it's okay to use open source software. I can't remember the last time I've seen someone give this talk. We're not having that conversation anymore, right? Now, about 6 years ago, Rich Bowen from the Apache Software Foundation wrote this blog post that has stuck with me, where he talks about the tension between professional versus volunteer open source contributors. He had a very pessimistic take, but there's a couple things in particular I want to call out from the beginning of the article. Sure, there were full-time developers, but they were in the minority. Those of us working a few hours on the weekends envied them greatly. We wished that we, too, could get paid to do the thing that we love. Now, 20 years on, the overwhelming majority of open source development is done by full-timers working 9 to 5 on open source software. That's a great thing, right? I think it's a thing to celebrate. And if we look back at this 2014 to 2022 chart, it's almost $1 billion between these 7 organizations. There are things here that we can celebrate and feel good about. But there's clearly something wrong, right? We have a lot to celebrate, but there are things that continue to be wrong in the organization, things that are falling through the cracks, or other things that just aren't working. Now, I'm not the first person at this conference even to talk about this particular issue, and we aren't the first people to talk about this. If you go back to the Tide Lift Upstream event last year, Julia Ferrioli gave a great talk called How We Treat Each Other is a Supply Chain Issue, and I encourage you to go back and watch Julia's talk here. I pulled out the quote that I cared about the most: you can't abstract people out of the software supply chain. Now, TideLift runs this maintainer survey every year, and we know that 2/3 of maintainers last year were considering quitting their projects or had already quit those projects. These are big problems, right? And big problems invite big solutions. Now, we know there's big problems because this is just the dependency graph for Kubernetes, right? Now, I can't even read it, and I don't know that anyone here could, even if we pulled it in, and I wouldn't understand half of it anyway, because it's not my area of specialty. But if you look at the MOS project, the Mapping Open Source project, and 20,000 nodes added, this is an incredibly dense graph. It's a very complex problem. If you look at the ecosystems data that they pull together, they're tracking 10 million packages from 63 registries, 115 million versions, and 1.6 million maintainers. This is a huge problem. Of course, it's going to invite big solutions, but big solutions will fail us in one way or another. If they don't fail us at scale, they will fail some of us individually. They may even fail almost the majority of us. Now, I want to talk about, briefly, say a word about platforms and scale. When you look at this, this is the full-size picture from that MOS map, by the way. I tried to get a better one, but it's so dense it almost crashes my machine. There's a lot there, right? It can be overwhelming as you look at it. It can be very difficult to look at. Any sane person would look at that and say, I just want an easy button. Can you tell me the things that I should be caring about and who needs help so I know what to do? And you can get the easy button in one of two ways, right? You can hope that you get an expert who can tell you the things that you're supposed to be caring about and sort of push the complexity off to them and say, you obviously understand the space well, please tell me the things I should care about. Or you can try to make all those complex things look the same. And if they look the same, then you can do things programmatically and you can come at them. And you can do that with things like GitHub repositories using the scorecard. You can look at code and you can kind of make some inferences about how those projects might look. You can even create some metrics that look at things beyond code. But none of those things are people. And FOSS doesn't work without people. We might get to the point that someday that generative AI, that software is writing software for other software, and it's going to write software that it's like is based on what it thinks you, or not, it's not even what it thinks, what it's going to guess that you might do next. It doesn't care. People care. And that's the thing that makes FOSS work. Repositories are not people, dependencies are not people, projects are not people. I got a whole list of things here that aren't people. And none of these things are capable of caring about you, all right? Repositories can't care, dependencies can't care, projects can't care, generative AI can't care. It just sort of kind of predict on what it thinks you're going to do next. Only people can care, and people are messy, right? Come back to this picture. As much as I would like to see more Pantone variants in the people that we have on this picture that I lifted from the OSI, everyone in this picture, everyone in this room is here for a different reason, bringing something different to the table, hoping to take something different away, wrestling with a different set of problems. It's messy. You can't make it look uniform, right? Let's talk about corporations, because also corporations are not people. And I want to push on this a little bit, because people usually have consciences and values and needs and behaviors, and those are things that corporations do not have. They don't have conscience, they have boards. They don't have values, they have policies, right? They don't have needs, they have targets, they don't have behaviors, they have processes. Corporations cannot do the right thing. That's not what they are, right? And we talk a lot in this process about how do we make Google do the right thing, or how do we make Amazon do the right thing. They won't, they can't. That's not what companies do. Also, repositories can't do the right thing. Neither can projects. Only people can do the right thing. Now, last year, we saw a lot of layoffs in the open source program office space. There was some conversation about it within the to-do group. I was one of the people who was caught up in those layoffs. And I bring this up in this context because all of us, especially if you've worked trying to raise sponsorship dollars for an organization like SeaGL or for the Python Software Foundation, when the people who run these program offices change seats, you have to start all over, right? You have to find out who your new advocate is in an organization. They may have changed. There may not be one right now. I know this to be the case because I was at Indeed leading their open source program office, and I can tell you for certain their sponsorship efforts today look nothing like they did when I was there because they don't have the same kind of internal advocacy, right? So it matters how we engage with people. It matters how we talk to people. It matters when we cut off people who have decades of experience building these programs offices or showing up for events like SeaGL. It matters when we call our bosses tightwads and then ask them for money. Now, this is a big problem. It's a complex problem. I promise if you're tired of hearing about this book, I'm smart enough not to give a dumb take, and I'm too dumb to give a great take. But Governing the Commons is a book that comes up commonly while we're talking about open source. And one of the core cruxes of the idea is if there's a resource that not everybody can have access to, what are the rules to make sure that it's governed fairly, right? So it comes up a lot as we're talking about open source. Luis Villa over at Tidelift referenced it in this blog post. The ability to copy software at essentially zero cost means open source software is pretty different from the commons she studied in her work. As a result, open source has been able to ignore some of her principles without paying a penalty. I think in some important ways this is changing because developer time is scarce and governments and businesses want to have more say in how open source is developed. I disagree. I disagree because developer time is not a scarce resource. I can make it. I can create developer time with an infinite pool of gold, and there seems to be an infinite pool of gold if you think there's enough at the end of the IPO rainbow or what have you. But I can put out a job description and say I'll pay $250,000 for someone to come work on this open source project, and I'll get somebody's attention. So developer time is not the scarce resource. Our ability to care is the scarce resource, because the people I hire in this context, when they get a different job, they will leave the project and never come back. They're not here because they care about how we work. They're not here because they care about this community. They're not here because they care about each other. Coming back to Rich's comment earlier, 20 years ago, the overwhelming majority of open source development is done by full-timers working 9 to 5 on open source software. Whether you agree with this or not, for many of them it is just a job. In this room, we are the ones who care. That makes us the valuable resource. Now, I don't think about Eleanor Ostrom when I think about valuable resources. It's not the first thing that comes to mind. The first thing that comes to mind is this guy. Does anybody know who he is? Gosh, I love this. This man's name is Utah Phillips. Does that name mean anything? I heard a couple O's, right? So Utah Phillips, folk singer, union organizer, did a lot of evangelism. If anybody knows about the independent workers of the world, the Wobblies, they probably know about it because of the work of him. Passed away in 2008. He did an album in 1990. Well, let me say that differently. There was a collaboration between he and Ani DeFranco in the 90s where they took some of his work and she laid some of his music over it, and so on. So in 96, they released an album together called The Past Didn't Go Anywhere. And he tells a great story on this album where he was at the State Young Writers Conference at Eastern Washington University because his kid was going to college there, and he'd been called, invited in to address the crowd. And he said he was looking out kind of off the stage, and he saw the suit and tie crowd, and he said something snapped, and he got up on stage and said something to the effect of, "You're about to be told one more time that you are America's most valuable natural resource. Have you seen what they do to valuable natural resources?" The point he goes on to make here is that those interests will take everything that you care about in their own interest and take it away from you if you aren't vigilant and careful in guarding it. So I want to come back to this particular problem, right? Because this is a problem that can only be solved when we care about each other, when we care for each other, and when we show up for each other. Because bigger solutions are not going to fix it. Working harder is not going to fix it. More money is not going to fix it. I got another list of things that aren't going to fix it as well. But we can fix it, and we can fix it by doing what I just said, showing up for each other, actually caring about each other, and holding the fire and caring about how this work gets done. Now, there are some other things that give me hope and some things I want to point to for examples. This is a chart from the ESLint donate page. ESLint for several years has been regifting some of the funds that they received from their projects, either to contributors who don't work on the project, or to some of their dependencies, or to other community projects who need help. Once they got to the point that they had sustainable funding for their own project, they started passing it along to the rest of the community and showing up for other people who needed it. This is encouraging, right? This chart that shows the growth of the Open Source Collective Foundation is encouraging because more money is moving into the hands of governance for the projects and the people who are behind those projects. Now, Open Collective has been in the news over the course of the last year. If you missed this blog post from about 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, the Open Collective platform is moving to a community-governed nonprofit. I won't go into the details, but I encourage you to look at it. The short answer is Open Collective isn't going anywhere, and the Open Source Collective Foundation is a distinctly different entity from the Open Collective Foundation. Corner me at the social, I'll do the best I can to explain it all. I want to close out because everywhere I've walked on campus, I've seen this particular banner. And it's hokey at times, but I genuinely believe that when we look at big systems that fail us, whether it be open source or the other things that we care about, this is the key. We can do it together if we show up for each other, if we care for each other, because we are all that we have. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for coming to the conference and sticking around.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. And, before we give the social, I actually realized I forgot an entire group of folks to thank. With all of these participants, all of these sponsors, the volunteers, attendees, if we didn't have the presenters, we'd just be hanging out. So thank you so much for your content. Thank you to our keynote speakers, Aaron, Christopher, Dwayne, and Rachel. And thank you to our presenters for sharing your knowledge with all of us. We really appreciate it. All right, so SeaGL 2025 will be returning to the University of Washington at the Hub. It'll be in November. We're pretty sure that it's going to be the 7th and 8th, but there's a chance that will be the 14th and 15th. If you have real strong feelings, please talk to us about either of those. We'll try to be making the decision within the next week or so, so really do reach out. In terms of the social, we're going to be here in this room until 6:30. After that, we'll go out to the expo hall. In the in-between, hopefully the expo hall will get a little cleared out so we can all leave this building before too late.